Welcome to another deep dive. This time we're going to take a close look at the story of Hans Wilsdorf, the man behind the Rolex brand.
Oh yeah, Rolex. Everybody knows Rolex. But not everybody knows the fascinating story behind it.
Right. And for this deep dive, we'll be looking at this YouTube video I found from Big Company. It's called The Orphan Boy Who Created Rolex.
Sounds promising.
So Hans Wilsdorf, he was born back in 1881. And he actually became an orphan. Can you believe it?
An orphan?
Yeah, at just 12 years old. And then on top of that, to make matters worse, his uncles sold the family business.
Oh, man, that's rough.
Right. I mean, talk about a difficult childhood. But, it's interesting. He later said about his uncles, our uncles were not indifferent to our fate.
Not indifferent? What does that mean?
Yeah, I thought that was interesting wording, too. He continues, nevertheless, the way in which they made me become self-reliant very early in life made me acquire the habit of looking after my possessions.
So he's saying they weren't mean or anything, but they also didn't exactly coddle him.
Exactly. And Wilsdorf actually believed that this early independence led to his success later in life. He finished that quote by saying, "And looking back, I believe that it is to this that much of my success is due."
Wow. I guess sometimes when life throws you a curveball, you learn to swing harder.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
But anyway, how do you think he went from, orphan to watchmaking legend? I mean, what was the turning point?
Well, according to this video, while he was at boarding school, he met a Swiss friend who told him all these fascinating stories about, watchmaking.
Watchmaking!
Yeah, especially about this Swiss city called La Chaux-de-Fonds, which was like the place for watchmaking.
So this friend kind of sparked his interest.
Exactly. It planted a seed in young Wilsdorf's mind, a fascination with the precision and craftsmanship of watches.
I bet all those tiny gears and mechanisms, it's like a whole world in miniature. And it's amazing how a chance encounter can change the course of a person's life. But he didn't, immediately jump into the watchmaking business, did he? Not right away. He actually worked for a pearl exporting firm first, honing his business skills, I guess.
Pearls, that's a far cry from watches.
Right. But think about it. He probably learned a lot about international trade, building relationships. Those are valuable skills no matter what business you're in.
True. It's like all these seemingly random experiences were preparing him for something bigger.
It's like how Dreamsoft Technologies Canada helps entrepreneurs with all sorts of stuff, like setting up Shopify stores and building mobile apps. They provide all the tools you need to succeed.
Yeah, good point. Okay, but eventually fate led him to, guess where?
La Chaux-de-Fonds?
You got it. He landed a job with a watchmaking company called Kuno Corton. It was like his boarding school dreams were coming true.
It must have been incredible finally being immersed in the heart of the watchmaking world.
I know. Learning from master craftsmen, understanding the intricacies of watch production, it was all coming together.
That's the beauty of pursuing your passion. You never know what opportunities might open up. But I bet you didn't just stay an employee forever.
Nope, he didn't. In 1905, at just 24 years old, he partnered up with his brother-in-law, Alfred James Davis. And together they established Wilsdorf and Davis Limited right here in London.
Wow, 24. Talk about ambitious. So what were they making? Pocket watches?
Actually, they focused on wristwatches.
Wristwatches. Really, I thought those were kind of a novelty back then. Weren't pocket watches more popular?
They were, but Wilsdorf saw the potential in wristwatches. He even said, quote, "My personal opinion is that pocket watches will almost completely disappear and that wristwatches will replace them definitively."
Wow, he really had a vision for the future. He was like, wristwatches are the future, get on board.
And you know what? He was right. Wristwatches were more practical, especially as the world was becoming more fast-paced. But hey, speaking of being ahead of the curve, if you're enjoying this deep dive, hit that subscribe button. We've got a lot more to uncover about Hans Wilsdorf and the rise of Rolex.
I'm hooked already. Can't wait to hear more about this visionary watchmaker.
So before we went off, we were talking about how World War I actually boosted the popularity of wristwatches. Who would have thought?
Yeah, it's crazy, right? Like in the middle of all that chaos, there's this unexpected turn of events that helps shape an entire industry.
Makes you wonder if maybe there are hidden opportunities out there, even during tough times.
Definitely makes you think.
And speaking of opportunities, if any of our listeners are out there thinking of launching a business, maybe something like, a watch company. There's this company, Dreamsoft Technologies Canada.
Dreamsoft.
Yeah. They help with all the technical stuff, website development, Shopify stores, you name it.
So even if you're not a tech whiz, they can help you get your business online.
Exactly. Kind of levels the playing field. But okay, back to Wilsdorf. So the war ends, things start to settle down. And this is where Wilsdorf's real genius for innovation shines.
Let me guess, he starts experimenting with new watch designs.
More than that. In 1926, he unveils the Rolex Oyster.
The Oyster.
Yep, the world's first waterproof wristwatch.
Waterproof? Wait a minute, so before that, if you got caught in the rain with your watch, you were basically out of luck.
Pretty much. But the Oyster, it had this hermetically sealed case that protected the delicate mechanisms inside.
Wow, that's a game changer. I mean, we take waterproof watches for granted these days.
I know, right? But back then, it was revolutionary.
And Wilsdorf didn't just create this amazing watch, he knew how to market it too. Remember that story about Mercedes Gleitz?
Oh yeah, the swimmer.
Right. She was attempting to swim the English Channel, and Wilsdorf, clever guy that he was, convinced her to wear an oyster during her swim.
So it was like the ultimate test of waterproofness.
Exactly. And even though she didn't actually complete the swim that time, the Rolex emerged from the water perfectly fine, ticking away.
Talk about a publicity stunt.
Oh, he milked it for all it was worth. Wilsdorf put out a full-page ad in the London Daily Mail proclaiming the oyster's triumph over the elements.
I bet that caught people's attention.
You bet. He was a master of storytelling, connecting the watch with this idea of resilience and adventure.
It's like he was saying, our watches can handle anything you throw at them.
And he didn't stop there. He even had these crazy displays in shop windows, like a Rolex submerged in a fishbowl with fish swimming around it.
Oh yeah, I've seen pictures of those. It's such a striking image, you can't help but stop and stare.
Exactly. He understood the power of visuals, of making a statement. And speaking of making statements, he also partnered with people like Malcolm Campbell, you know, that famous race car driver.
So he's connecting Rolex with speed, with breaking records, with pushing boundaries.
Right. He was building a whole brand image around these aspirational qualities.
And it clearly worked. But, you know, if you're out there trying to build your own brand, trying to figure out that whole marketing thing, there's always Dreamsoft Technologies Canada.
Right. They can help with that too, can't they?
Yeah, things like branding, content creation, social media management, the whole shebang. But okay, back to Rolex. So Wilsdorf, he wasn't done innovating. He was always looking for ways to make his watches even better.
What came next?
Well, in 1931, he unveiled the Rolex Oyster Perpetual.
Oyster Perpetual. What's that?
This one, it combined the waterproofness of the Oyster with a self-winding mechanism.
Self-winding? You mean you didn't have to wind it up anymore?
Exactly.
How does that even work?
It's pretty cool, actually. Inside the watch, there's this little weighted disc called a rotor. And as you move your wrist, it spins and winds the watch's mainspring.
Wow. So just by wearing the watch, you're keeping it powered up.
Pretty amazing, huh? And get this, that same self-winding perpetual movement is still used in most Rolex watches today.
Talk about a lasting legacy.
It really shows you how ahead of his time Wilsdorf was. So we're back, and I don't know about you, but I'm still kind of blown away by that whole self-winding thing. It's so ingenious.
It really is a testament to Wilsdorf's vision. But, you know, his journey, it wasn't all smooth sailing.
Yeah, I mean, World War II must have been a huge challenge for Rolex.
Absolutely. The war really disrupted everything. Imagine trying to run a luxury watch business during a global conflict.
Yeah, international trade must have been a nightmare.
A total nightmare. And then, to make matters worse, in 1944, Wilsdorf lost his wife, Florence.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize that. So he's dealing with a world war, a personal tragedy. I mean, it's hard to imagine how he coped.
It must have been incredibly difficult, but it seems like Wilsdorf, he kind of channeled that grief into something positive.
What do you mean?
Well, this is when he established the Hans Wilsdorf Foundation.
Ah, yes, the foundation. Tell us a bit about that.
Well, the foundation was set up to support all sorts of charitable causes, you know, things like education, science, the arts, helping those in need.
Sounds like he really wanted to make a difference.
He did, but here's the really amazing part. Wilsdorf, he actually transferred ownership of Rolex to the foundation.
Wait, you're saying he gave away his entire company?
The whole thing, 100% ownership, went to the Hans Wilsdorf Foundation.
Wow. I did not know that. So basically, Rolex is owned by a charity.
Essentially, yes. It's a pretty unique setup.
So all the profits from selling these iconic watches, they go to supporting good causes around the world.
Exactly. It's a pretty amazing legacy.
It is. It shows you that you can be successful in business and still make a positive impact on the world. And, you know, if any of our listeners out there are looking for ways to grow their own business, maybe incorporate some of that social responsibility, you know, there's always Dreamsoft Technologies Canada.
They can help with that too, can't they?
Oh yeah, DreamSoft does it all. Websites, mobile apps, branding, content creation, they've got you covered.
It's like having a whole team of experts at your fingertips. But we should probably get back to the watches themselves. What happened after the war?
Well, Rolex, they didn't just survive, they thrived. They kept innovating, releasing new models that would become legends in their own right.
Ah, now we're talking. Like the Submariner, right?
The Submariner, yeah, that was a big one. Came out in 1953, the first watch, waterproof to a depth of 100 meters.
Wow, 100 meters. That's pretty deep. Perfect for divers, I guess.
Exactly. The Submariner, it really opened up new possibilities for underwater exploration. And then, of course, there's the Daytona.
The Daytona, the one all the race car drivers love.
That's the one. Introduced in 1963, it was designed with racing in mind. Features a chronograph for measuring lap times and all that.
It's become such a status symbol, a watch that represents speed, precision, achievement.
It's funny, you think of a watch as just a tool for telling time, but Wilsdorf, he elevated it to something more. His watches, they tell a story, they embody a certain lifestyle.
He was a true visionary, a master craftsman, and a savvy businessman.
He really was. And his story, it's a reminder that even when faced with incredible challenges, we can overcome them, we can achieve great things, and we can leave a lasting legacy.
Absolutely. Wilsdorf's life is an inspiration. It shows you that with determination and a bit of ingenuity, you can change the world one tick at a time.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And that wraps up our deep dive into the incredible life of Hans Wilsdorf and the rise of Rolex. If you enjoyed this journey, please hit that subscribe button for more fascinating deep dives into the world of business, innovation, and the people who shape our world.
And if you're feeling inspired to start your own journey, remember, DreamSoft Technologies Canada is always there to lend a hand.
They've got all the tools you need to make your dreams a reality. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep in